I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is great. We're doing better. There's more and more people at our meetings. Thank you for coming. So the first order of business is to elect officers for the coming school board year. Can everybody hear me back there? Deb? Thumbs up? Okay. So nominations are open.
I'd like to nominate Rick Whitlow to serve again next year as our president.
I'll second that.
Do you have a vice president in mind?
I will do it.
Would you continue in your role? Can I add that to yours? Okay. Any discussion or questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. All righty, moving on. I move that we approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any comments or discussions, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Danielle, anybody from the audience wish to speak?
Nope.
All righty. Hollison Miller. You want to control the clicker yourself?
Yeah. I think I got it under control. Good evening, guys. I'm Megan Warner again, by the way, and just to let you know, we have Kevin Nelson here with us, who's a project architect, and Larry Jordan with Hollison Miller here, and he's the project manager. Kirk would like to send his regards. He is currently there. He is not here. He has scheduled a family vacation that they had to actually get permits to hike and everything, so they couldn't change it. It's been over 6 months. So he deeply regrets not being here and would like to apologize. Tonight, in your board docs that you guys have had for a while, you've been able to see the PowerPoint that we're going to do a lot of tonight. And so with the request, I'd like to skip over a lot of the design stuff and really get down into the numbers part, unless somebody would like me to go back through more of the design process to date. Is everybody okay with skipping to the numbers?
Yeah.
In respect of your time. Okay, so in front of you, you have this budget cost sheet that you've also seen. Column A, option A, as you can see, totals down to $85 million. Option B totals down to 73. I'm going to give you a couple other hints of what's going on this sheet. On the left, you can see all the numbers in the descriptions. You'll see H&M, that represents Hollison Miller's number, and NCS, that's Navolt's Construction. It's a third party. It's somebody we've done work with in the past. They've got an office in Kansas City, but they also work all the way down to Arkansas and Oklahoma City. They've done work in Independence and everything. But so we've done some work with them, got a second opinion, so you can see our numbers are pretty close and we've really compared. So that's what those numbers are. Option A represents the full site master planned with all items and a 1,200 student school to accommodate 1,200 students. Option B is a phased implementation of that master site plan, but still building a school that will accommodate 1,200 students. So that's what that is, and I'm going to break it down and show you what those parts and pieces actually include in those numbers. As you can see, there is a line for a middle school on there, as well as the pool. So we're not going to talk about those two lines at the moment. We're just going to talk about the high school stuff. So again, we do have our full site plan. The building is budgeted at $45 million. Site is 10. Sports fields is 6.1. And a pool for 3.5. Just to let you know, just so you don't feel like we've misled you, we've said 55 in the past. Well, if you look at 45 plus the 10, that gets us to our 55 for the high school. We've also added quite a bit of work at the middle school to accommodate the high school conversion to the middle school, and also a pool. So that's how we've grown quite a bit in this number to help you guys out. Another thing is we have a very beautiful site, but it is a very hilly site. And as much, we've designed a building that we think really fits with the site and uses that slope, but on the reverse side, we can't really terrace a football field. That has to be flat. So there is quite a bit of money in moving some dirt. Here's our building. It is always shown at its full build out at 300,000 plus square feet, which will accommodate 1,600 students. As you can see, we're quite a bit smaller at 1,200 students, but we want to show that there is places for it to grow on. We have a pool for $4 million attached right there to the high school, and that little spot to the right could also accommodate, we could put a Y on the front of that, so we know that we have that possibility still. That's not out of the question. It's just not in our budget right now. That was something they'd bring money back into. We have the football stadium for 4.8. That is a full football stadium with turf, sound, scoreboard, irrigation. One possible thing, we will have expansion for bleachers. That's one of the future items for that, to expand it to expand it by 3,000. But I think it'll hold 2,500 to begin. We could stripe it for a soccer field, because you'll see in a second that soccer does not have the turf. So we can accommodate a soccer field on there if that's something that we see as possible. A soccer stadium, we have $200,000 in there for. It would be a grass field with an irrigation system. The football and soccer back up to each other, so they would share amenities such as the restrooms and the concession building and kind of the dressing out locker rooms. But this one would not have bleachers, or the bleachers, the lights, the sound system, and the scoreboard would all be future. So for a while they could possibly play on the football field, or we'd have a soccer, there's a soccer stadium right now. We have practice fields. We're showing a practice soccer, a practice football, and then we also have a PE practice down at the bottom of the school, which could either be used for during PE, band practice, so it's closer to the school. These fields are just grass, flat fields with grass and irrigation. Baseball fields. Right now we're just going to build one baseball field with a future baseball field shown. It'll just be a grass field with an irrigation system and fencing. There won't be a scoreboard or lights. The idea is that the competitions would still be played at the current high school, using their competition field over here. So the idea with some of this is we can get everybody to practice on a daily basis on this site. They'll still might have to leave for some of their game facilities for a little bit. We do have space for the future competition baseball field though. Softball fields, those will be competition. We have budgeted one with lights and a scoreboard. The second scoreboard and lights is future, but that way we could have one that could go later into the evening. Tennis courts. We have 4 tennis courts shown with a future of 4 more to be added, along with future lights. Kevin's going to help and talk you. Any questions on the site? Anything you guys? Sure.
The football stadium, the seating, is it much larger than what we have now?
I believe it is. It's, I don't know exactly what your seat count is now, but it should be quite a bit larger. Any other questions?
So it's not an A-frame for this dual soccer, like an A-type seating. It's just seating only for the football field, not.
Right now, we don't, we'll have a space for the future bleachers for the soccer.
Okay.
We do not have the bleachers on that side for the soccer at the moment. Okay. Kevin's going to take you through some of the building party.
I think you've seen these 3 parties up here, so we're going to skip ahead to kind of our current hybrid party. And basically what we've got here, you've seen the orange shape on the site plan, so this is kind of the building party, which is a little bit, showing you a little bit more detail about where the spaces are going to occur in the building, but as a party is defined, it's still a major, big organizational idea. It's not really a design yet, it's just the way the spaces start to relate to each other. And so on the left side of the diagram, we've got athletics and performing arts, kind of more of those public spaces. And on the right side of the diagram, we've got more of our core academic classrooms surrounded by an outdoor learning courtyard.
Is it possible for you to use the microphone?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Sure. Is this on? Can you hear better now? Okay. So this next party is for level 3. We are looking at a 3-level building. Level 3 would be your main entrance level, and we'll from there step kind of down the hill towards the floodplain. So we're really trying very hard to use the natural topography of the site as we design the building. The more we can do that, the more we can save on site grading, and it also kind of helps create the building nestled into the way the site works and down to the trees, which was kind of one of our main objectives, was kind of nature's classroom and kind of justify that. So on level 3, like I said, this is your main entrance level. It's also your student entrance level. So does this have a... Looking for the laser pointer. Okay, so this is your main entrance level. This would be your drop-off loop with your admin and your large group instruction and counseling kind of all in this area. And then this big blue grouping, this is kind of your athletics, your future pool or current pool, whichever it phases in, and then even the YMCA. So top-loading gym and all athletics happen here in the blue. Right here, this is your student and activity entrance. So those main entrance, student activity entrance happen on that level 3. And then from there, we've got a top-loading auditorium off that level. The commons is this yellow shape here in the middle. It's actually a 3-story commons. The cafeteria and the kitchen are actually on the very lowest level, but from this level, when you walk in the main entrance, you'll be able to look down into the commons and also be able to look down into this learning courtyard. The main level of the classroom areas has Freshman Academy, which is kind of these orange shapes here, and then starts with the core classrooms and the media center.
Kevin, the dash line in the gym, what does that denote?
Dash line in the gym represents a walking track for our top-loading gym on the top of it. One level down to level 2, because we're kind of building into the hill here on this north side. We've got the gym floor. Along with that, we've got wrestling lockers and some other support spaces for athletics. Then across from the gym, we've got our bus entrance and our staff entrance. They're one level down from the student entrance, but all coming in the same side of the building so that we can kind of secure and supervise that side of the building. This is where your main performing arts is, your main floor of your auditorium, your stage level, black box, band, vocal, music, all that happens kind of in this kind of pale gray area right here. From there, we've got business and journalism across the north side here, and then we go back into our core classroom wing here with science grouped here towards the bottom. One thing to keep in mind, this core classroom wing is also joined vertically here in the center with the collaboration space. One thing that we're looking at doing is maybe there's a learning stair or something that helps combine all 3 levels of academic learning kind of together vertically. Again, you've got the media center here close to the students, academic wing, surrounded by that outdoor learning courtyard. So that's level 2. We're going to go down now to the lowest level, level 1. This would walk out towards the trees. And this is where we've got our kitchen, our building services, some of the industrial tech drafting pieces are down at this level as well, along with our commons, which opens on to the outdoor learning courtyard. You'll see when we get a little bit farther into the 3D images that that courtyard also slopes down the hill, so there'll be ways to terrace it and access it from multiple levels. This white box right here is actually open. It's underneath the media center, and what that will do is that'll provide an accessible way to get into the courtyard for maintenance, but it also provides covered outdoor dining and outdoor learning for the common space and also your art classes that are in the lowest level of the classroom. Art and facts and some other exploratory programs happen in that lowest level. So those are kind of the quick partie. If you guys have any questions on that, we can go back or we'll move into the massing of the building.
Just one question.
Sure.
You mentioned, it had been mentioned earlier that part of this building would be built into the ground so that it would be good storm shelter.
Potentially, yeah. We have not specifically identified storm shelter locations, but there's going to be a lot of potential to be able to do that the way we're kind of building into the hill.
Okay.
I know that I've seen 1,600 for this number of students, but 1,200 here, is it?
It is, first phase would be 1,200. Okay. As you're seeing it right now, we're still kind of in master plan phase, so what you see is the building is always for 1,600. It's the full build out, and then we'll kind of pare that down a little bit. There'll be some areas that you're seeing now that would come later. So, for example, if you look at the classroom wing, and if I can get the laser to work, this area right here is part of the classroom wing.
Okay.
That 3-story portion of that wing would be future phase. So in phase 1, it would kind of cut off right about there. And then there's also some future industrial tech right here. So there's places around the building that have kind of been identified for future expansion. But as we're trying to stay within the whole master plan for the future, we're showing all 300,000 square feet or 1,600 capacity. So here we are, we're going to look at some massing studies, and again, this is more an exercise to show us how it's starting to look into the hill and where some opportunities are, less a design, more still party, big idea. On the right side, you'll see a little diagram of kind of where the view is taken. And so this view is if you were hovering over the drop-off loop looking towards the building. And so this is level 3, or your main level. And here in the center would be some sort of entry feature to help draw attention to it. And then out here in what is green in this 3D image would be that drop-off loop. So to the right is kind of your athletics, your gym, your pool, your future auxiliary gym. To the left is administration, large group instruction, and then we start our classroom wing here. If you look kind of past this first piece of building, over the roof, you start to see the courtyard and how it starts to step down the hill and get to a multiple level building down here towards the south.
Mrs. Loeb, you were asking about varying things in the hill. As you can see, the gym only appears as a one-story. So that gym is actually pushed into the hill along with some of the locker rooms, and some of those kind of spaces are what we can consider in the future to look at for storm shelters.
And access to the pool, you got that in the plan somehow, that the rest of the building can be locked off?
Yes.
So the public can use that part of
We'll
it?
be able to section it off in several ways. We'll be able to isolate the pool. You'll also be able to isolate the academic wing away from everything else. So if you want to operate performing arts and the commons, you don't have to have the entire academic wing open as well. So there'll be ways to kind of segment it down for supervision and after-hours activities. So we've kind of come around to the opposite side. So now we're at the southwest, looking back. So if we were standing kind of in the trees, hovering over the floodplain, looking back at the building. And so again, you can kind of start to see how that athletic area, the main gym, is all built into the hill. You're seeing that at the top level, or the walking track level on grade. And this is also where the students enter. So students would park up here and come into this level 3 main level entrance. Now down this wall here, one more level down, this is where your bus loop is. So bus and students are separate, but they're still coming into the same side of the building, and we did that for supervision purposes. Down this way, we step down one more level, and as you get down to this level, you're at the kitchen building services level. Over this direction, this area right here is the media center. It's a 2-story volume space at this point with the open air covered space underneath it, as we talked before, adjacent to the large outdoor learning courtyard, which here you can start to see it's terraced down, so it'll be accessible from multiple levels. And then here's your 3-story classroom wing that steps kind of as you go up the hill. Here's another view from the southeast, and this starts to show you the main view of the classroom wing and the outdoor learning courtyard. Lots of glass and views out to that courtyard. From the commons, here's your 3-story commons, and then this is your classroom wing, and then I talked about that center collaboration space in the middle academic wing that'll help vertically connect all the classroom wings. That's kind of represented right here with this blue box here in the middle. We talked a little bit about future expansion. This area right here, again, that's an idea for future expansion, that we could expand this building if need be. So that's the 3D massing. Any questions, or we're going to go back and look at anything?
How big is the open commons area?
The open courtyard?
Yeah.
Currently, we're still kind of in master plan phase, but it's probably about 50,000–60,000 square feet.
Is the thought to terrace it like that?
In some manner, it will terrace because you go from level 1, from level 1 at this level up to level 2. So it will have one level change within it.
Do you envision making it stepped or just a slope?
In some way, you would probably step it because you're going to need to have some ramps and some stairs, and it'll actually provide a lot of opportunity. You could have an amphitheater out there. There'd be many ways that we can develop that space into several different learning activities. So one level you may have for art underneath that covered area where they can go out, they can have some covered or some sun. You may step up another level, it might be more of a small group reading area, just where kids can go outside and enjoy the outdoor weather, but read. And the one nice thing also about the way the courtyard is shaped, underneath that media center will be fenced, it's gated, so it's a secure courtyard, but you can get to it through that gate for maintenance. So it'll be a large space that'll need some development, but it'll provide great opportunities.
Kevin, glass on the walls of the courtyard lead me to believe that that's also to maximize supervision in that area?
Exactly, right. Not only will it allow views and daylight in and out of the building to the courtyard, but that way, if you're in the main quarters, you can see kind of what's going on. Any other questions about the massing concept? Alrighty, turn it back over to Meg. Thank you.
One of the other items on your budget line is the pool. And so just to give you a description of what that is, it is a 6-lane pool with a diving well. It is the combined pool and diving well, so we've really kind of condensed it down. It is still competition legal and will function as that, but just to give you a description, it's about 11,000 square feet. So, but it is a competition pool, but it is only a competition pool. No hot water, cold water, it doesn't have the functions of the YMCA. It is strictly a competition pool. So the last part of this is the middle school. I'm also going to skip the design process for the middle school and everything we went through and just kind of show you what the budget is for that. Oh, this is, I'm just going to go back, quick, interesting. Right now, this site, here we have the existing high school site along with the board office site. It is about 40 acres. Right now, the master plan for the new high school site, we are developing about 89 acres. So we are really developing about twice as much land as we are currently sitting on here. Even if you look at what we are going to define as the middle school at this point, it's still only 22 acres. So it just shows you how large of a site we do have out there, and we are developing. We are developing quite a bit more than is currently on this high school site.
Megan, could I just jump in? Some of you are probably wondering, she mentioned the YMCA and so forth. Those pieces are still in play. And the way the pool is designed and the location of it is if the YMCA does step in, then all of that can be added. And so we've designed this with them in mind for adding those services later. The other thing is we do have applications in, I believe, Larry, for 2 FEMA shelters. So, but those 2 pieces aren't anything that we have narrowed down yet. So we have to go with everything that we can, talk about today. The big thing, and I've let the YMCA know, is that we're battling this race time against state aid. And even though state aid went from 39% to 41% recently, which is great news, I still have the worry of losing that. And we let the YMCA know we would love to have you. We'd love to be partners. The city has attended those meetings, but we have to move forward. And so, thank you, Megan.
So for the middle school, the same thing. We have also master planned it to accommodate the 900 kids, which would be the same time that the high school would hold 1,600. So if the high school opens with a capacity of 1,200, that would equal 750 at the middle school. So we also have the middle school capability showing how it would expand for the future. Some of the cost items, if you see on your sheet, the middle school line, we had originally $12 million in there, and that is everything that the school had asked for, and we really worked with them to kind of get down to what is acceptable and into a budget range. And our new number is $8 million. But I'd just like you to take a look up there as the colored areas. Anything that is colored is what we are touching. So we are touching almost every academic space in that building. We aren't doing any work in the Performing Arts Center because that is a new and beautiful facility, and not doing any work in the gym. We're trying to affect as many students as possible with this $8 million. So as you can see, we really touch everything. Here's what that $8 million does. We open at 750 students with the capacity to accommodate 900 students. We are creating grade houses. Currently the middle school operates in teams, so all 6th graders together, and they have an activity area. That activity area is shown in orange, and there are 3 science rooms and 9 core classrooms. So we have all of 6th grade on the bottom. The green up on the upper right is a new media center. And we also have green along the front of the building, which creates a new identity, as well as some additional administrative space. We're also doing some pretty heavy renovation in the existing office. All the gray that you see on the current classrooms would be a new finishes, so new tile, new ceiling, new floor, new ceiling, new marker boards, new paint on the walls. Very big, fresh uplook, but we're not going to move a lot of walls in some of those spaces. Some of the areas in purple are the areas that we're really going to do some heavy work in, and those are mainly the science rooms and anything that involves water, because those are usually some of the more expensive costs. On the upper floor, we are adding some couple science rooms in the upper right over that media center. That's the green space. And then again, we're doing some facelift in a lot of the classrooms with new ceiling, new flooring, marker boards on the walls, and paint. We've also got money in there for technology. The outbuildings in the back, the old shop, that will be converted into exploratory space, so we will have to do some upgrading so we can get foreign language and get some of the technology stuff in there. But we've really looked at those numbers and we feel that we can do this for $8 million. That is touching a very large chunk of that school and really making it. Talking with Kerry, he's been very happy and feels that this would be a great middle school for him.
Could you touch a little bit about security measures for the entrance?
With this new addition on the front, this guy right here, we will create a secure vestibule so that as people come in, they can come in the first set of doors, and then the only place that they have the option to go is right into the reception office. They can come out of the reception and then flow into the school, but the only place they can go when they first come is that reception area. The other security issue is we have these 4 semicircle corridors on the back, these stairwells. I've always heard teachers say those are hard to supervise. In this, we are creating a secure courtyard. So this would be an actual wall, an actual wall, and an actual wall. So 3 of those stairwells would then be encapsulated in that courtyard so that, yes, they're going to go outside, but unless they want to jump the wall, they really don't have any place to go. They can't leave and go to their car like current high school kids maybe hopefully can't.
Ours don't do that.
So we really reduced the number of entrances and exits out of that building that are not secure. We will have to have a gate in that courtyard so that people can exit and you can get a truck in there for maintenance, but on a daily basis it would be locked down.
You're going to have a covered hallway or something?
This is a canopy. It is not an actual conditioned, air-conditioned walls on either side. It is something over their head so they can stay dry and get to their outdoor classes, but it is not a weather-enclosed hallway. One of the great things the middle school people that we talked about when we worked with their team was using they've asked for an auxiliary gym. One of the ideas we presented them with is we have a gym right there to the south, intermediate gym. Could we use that? And that was one of the cost-saving things that they really looked for, and we're excited to say that they say, hey, we'd rather spend the money on the kids than a gym. We need some of that space. We'd be happy to use that intermediate gym. So we'd also propose extending that canopy just a little bit farther so that we get all the way to that auxiliary gym so they can use the intermediate for part of the middle school function.
And would that courtyard be able to be used like an outdoor classroom like the high school? It's going to be set up that way?
Yeah. Put some green space in it and some places for tables. And because art is actually right out here. We've got art sitting right here, so art can come right outside. And, you know, easy access if science wanted to come from their classrooms outside and do some kind of experiment, it's right there. Anybody have any questions on how we get to $73 million and what that includes? I know it's a little bit of a sticker shock, but we hope that we've done what we could to explain what that $73 million really represents and that it is quite a lot and it's pretty fantastic for Lansing. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to the money guy so he can really tell you what $73 million means.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Vardenberg with Piper Jaffray. Does everyone have a copy of the financing analysis that we had sent out in the middle part of last week? If not, I've got extra copies if you need.
I don't think any of us have one.
I don't have one.
I know sometimes it's hard to see numbers on the screen, so.
Thank you. Again, Greg Vardenberg and Piper Jaffray, and as many of you may remember,
the April 9th board meeting, and we talked about draft financing analysis. And at that point in time, we were showing a $52 million bond issue to be repaid over 22 years, and that scenario resulted in a mill levy of about 18.9 mils, which is about a 9.7 mil increase. And so what we've done is, excuse me, what we've done is we've updated our analysis to take into account the larger size of the bond issue. Excuse me, sorry about that. And what you see there is the bond buyer index, which shows the interest rate trend over the last 25 years, but more importantly, if you look at the bottom right, for the last couple of months, since April, when we ran that initial analysis for you, we were looking at interest rate of about 4.1%. Rates have stayed relatively stable during that time, and interest rates right now, the analysis that we're using for that financing plan this evening, we end up with an interest rate of about 4.34%. So still a very low interest rate. We'll walk you through the details of the financing plan we're using for the $73 million that you're seeing this evening. But overall, if you're considering a construction project, interest rates are very near record lows. In fact, earlier this year we set a record low for the last 50 years, and we're not far off of those record lows where we stand today. The next page, as we get into developing a plan of finance, we'll oftentimes look back at your assessed valuation and look at your state aid and use that trend to guide us in regards to the assumptions we would use for the plan of finance moving forward. And it's a little bit challenging for school districts in recent years because assessed valuation for many school districts hasn't grown at the same pace that it has prior to 2007, 2008 with the downturn in the economy. But USD 469 has had a very healthy growth rate over the last 10 years. You've grown at about 6.9% per year. Your state aid has ranged from 35 to 39%. And when we look not at just the last 10 years, but the last couple of years, for example, the last 3 years, you've grown at about 2.13%, a little slower growth rate, but still positive, and that's better than a lot of the school districts in the state. We have now received the estimated assessed valuation that you're using for your budget purposes, and when we finalize this November, it looks like it would be flat going into this next year compared to the assessed valuation that was finalized last November, or November 2011. And I believe the new assessed valuation for 2012 is $117,605,782. And I'll walk you through the assumptions we're using in our plan of finance. We are using a flat growth for a couple of years and then starting an increase in assessed valuation moving forward, but at a slower pace than we've seen over the last 10 years. Also, as mentioned earlier, that increase to 41% state aid is very important. That 41% is not 41% of construction costs or the principal amount of the bonds, but it's also 41% of the interest expense. So it ends up being a very large portion of your total financing cost, principal and interest on the bond issue that will be paid by the state of Kansas and not by local taxpayers. And so it has a tremendous impact on keeping the mill levy as low as possible for this size of the bond issue. So if you will, then behind tab 1, which is where we get into the mill levy analysis, this is where we're showing the updated scenario for $73 million. And what we have shown, and I guess before I get into the numbers, what I do want to point out is that we updated our analysis recently once we were provided with the new construction costs that will be shared with you this evening. These calculations are a financing plan that you may want to consider, but I do want to stress before we would share the numbers with a the community or with the bond election campaign committee, that there's some things we want to work through with you and the administration of the district to make sure you're comfortable in the repayment period, the assumptions we're using, and the projected mill levy that then will be shared with the community. But what we're showing here is a $73 million bond issue to be repaid over 25 years. We've used that 41% state aid, which when you look at the state aid reimbursement column, which is the fifth column from the right, you'll notice that over the life of the bond issue, state aid equates to $72,200,292. So a very large percentage of the total cost, principal and interest again, will be paid by the state of Kansas. So it stresses that importance of not losing state aid on your project, and that's the same feeling for many of the other school districts we've been working with on their recent bond issues. Again, the assumptions we're using here, we're showing assessed valuation growing at 3% beginning in the year 2014. We're showing that new estimate of assessed valuation that will be finalized this year, which will be used for the tax collection cycle in 2013, which is the $117,605,000. We have also assumed that there is an additional refinancing opportunity for a portion of the 2005A bonds. Not only would that help us capture a small savings for the district, but it also helps us manage the mill levy in those early years. We've included that refinancing as part of this overall plan of finance. And what you will notice, based upon the assumptions we're using, that estimated interest rate of 4.34%, you end up with a mill levy of 21.5 mils. Last year, your mill levy was at 9.179 mils. I think your budget this year, it looks like the mill levy would still be somewhere in that 9 mil range. And so the final projected increase in that mill levy from this next budget cycle to when, after the bonds will be sold and when you would budget for the repayment of those bonds, it looks like it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about a 12.3 mil increase, or potentially slightly lower than that based on where the mill levy for the bond and interest fund is set this next budget cycle. If you take that 12.3 mil increase and compare that to calculate what that increase would be for a $150,000 homeowner, you end up with a mill levy increase of about $212 per year, or $17.68 per month. Or if you look at that on a $100,000 home, it would be $141 per year, or closer to $11.80 per month for a $100,000 home. I know we've got some information that when we finalize the plan of finance and start sharing information with the community, should you decide to move forward. We have information on a variety of home values that we can share for taxpayers, but just for your benefit, the 2000 census median value for homes in all of Leavenworth County was $96,900. The pages following that mill levy analysis are really detailed calculations of how this bond issue is structured, how the proceeds would be allocated, the repayment schedule for the bond issue. I'd be happy to get into any of the details that you would like to address. But again, we're showing a 25-year repayment schedule. In Kansas, school districts are authorized to have bond issues to be repaid in 30 installments over a 32-year period. So we're not stretching it out as far as we could, but for a project of this size and the scope of improvements that you're considering, a lot of school districts in Kansas will consider a similar repayment schedule. And so I thought it was appropriate to share this scenario with you this evening. The information, if you turn to tab 3 in the handout and move a few pages back on the overhead, this is where we share the calendar of events. And I thought it would be helpful just to walk you through the process of calling the election and issuing the bonds. And there's a couple of key dates that I would want to point out there. Obviously, this evening, July 9th, we have worked with bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell, to prepare a draft ballot question and a resolution should you choose to move forward and call the bond election. If that is the desire of the board, then the next step would be to publish notice of intent for the district to submit an application to the State Board of Education. That would occur later this week. And then the application to the State Board of Education will also be submitted at the end of this week. And what that application includes is information about your bond issue, certain legal documents that are required to be included in there. There's a formal application letter that will be signed, a resolution, and then some of the projections related to the project and the plan of finance will be included in there. Any school district that issues bonds that are in excess of 14% of its assessed valuation, those school districts are required to submit that application to the State Department of Education by the 15th of the month prior to the following State Board of Education board meeting. And I believe the State Board meeting in August is around August 14th. So your application will be submitted to the State Department of Education later this week so that it would be on the agenda for the August 14th State Board meeting. And those applications, I don't want to suggest that they're routine, but any school district that has ever submitted an application to the State Board has received approval to move forward with the bond election. It is a required step, but it's one that we would expect approval from the State Board. And assuming that that occurs, then we would be working with the county clerk's office to make sure that the ballot question is on the November ballot. There's 2 required publications, informational publications that would occur prior to that November election date. We're showing those publications on this calendar occurring in late August. But really from your perspective, once you have called the election and we've helped you send that application into the State Board of Education, the focus from the district perspective is switches over to more of a campaign or informational approach towards informing the community as to the improvements that are going to be made from the bond issue and the cost and the projected mill levy and some of those things that voters would want to know about. Oftentimes what we see is that a school, and it's important to note this, that the school district can't spend taxpayer dollars for the promotion of the bond election, but you can use district resources to inform voters about what you've put on the ballot, what's included in the proposed project, and cost, and some of those type of items. So oftentimes we'll see the district take an informational approach from the time they've called the election to the election date and getting information out, but oftentimes we also see a campaign committee formed that will raise its own funds to then go out and promote the bond election to the community. That's similar to the approach used by the district in the last bond election, what we see from many school districts as well. Here again, we're showing the election date is November 6th, and it's not necessary that you move quickly after the election to sell the bonds, but if interest rates remain favorable, we've shown a sequence of events there that would result in the bonds being sold to investors on December 10th, bring the results back to you at the December 10th board meeting, and then the closing of the bond issue would occur in late December. It's at that point that the bond proceeds would be paid to the district, deposited into the project construction fund, and then available for when you're working with the architect and the construction company for construction costs. So, that's a quick update on the plan of finance and the time frame that we would go through on calling the election and actually issuing the bonds. Again, I had mentioned that Gilmore and Bell has drafted the bond resolution and the ballot question, and I believe that was included in the board docs packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that resolution or the plan of finance or even the process.
Greg, what would the mill levy change to without the state aid of 41%?
Without the state aid, we did that calculation earlier today, and instead of 21 mills, I believe it was either 34 or 36, which that would be very high for a bond and interest fund levy for a school district in Kansas. So I think, again, it stresses that importance of the state aid and not losing that opportunity. And I agree with Dr. Bagby's comments earlier about state aid. We've, I've been in this business for a number of years, and we've seen several attempts to take away state aid. None of them were seriously considered, but the attempt to eliminate state aid earlier this year was probably the first serious attempt to do away with state aid, and I sense that even though it wasn't changed this year, that topic may come back up the next legislative session. Not suggesting that it will go away next year, but it's there now, available for school districts to issue bonds, but that could be open for discussion in the next legislative session.
Any other questions for Mr. Barenberg? Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, I have one question for you and your team there. When I looked at the agenda and I saw 85 million and then I saw 73 million, I picked up the phone and I called Randy. So in 3 sentences or less, tell us, is 73 million what it's really costing? Are we paying for marble and tile and stuff that you would find in Blue Valley and Johnson County? Or is this legitimate, necessary architecture services for our community?
I'm going to defer that to the guy that does the money from our side, our project manager.
No, we're not getting a gold-plated school by any stretch of the imagination. You are getting a school that will accommodate your educational program as good as any other school in the Midwest. The 73 million, as Megan and Kevin mentioned, 48 million of that is bricks and mortar. A good portion of that is furniture, equipment. A good part of that is site development, so that we don't have flood water roaring down the creek from our development. A good part of that, there is a significant amount of money there, about 10%, somewhere between 8 and 10% of contingency money for unforeseens. Hopefully, at the end of the project, we've only used a small portion of that, and we can, use that for other things that districts always want to do that probably never could afford to. This is going to buy you a school that the community is going to be proud of, but we don't have marble. This is going to be a school comparable to newer high schools in Kansas. I don't know if that answers your question or not, as far as quality.
I just want our patrons to understand that we're not buying flash over necessity.
No. I wouldn't in any means consider the design extravagant in any way. I mean, we're trying to meet the needs of the district and kind of the growing population, and design a building that's going to support the school district and the community for many years to come. I mean, no one wants to spend a lot of money to design a building and then turn around in 5 years and say, we got to do something again. I mean, we want this to be a building that you can grow with and will support you for a long time. But by no means would I describe it as extravagant.
And Kevin, just to add a piece there, our plan is still to be LEED certified.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not the upper levels of LEED, but to be LEED certified. When we started looking at the upper levels, I forget what they're called, then it just kept adding more and more cost. But we feel like we can do this bare bones approach and still have a LEED certified high school.
Especially with a project this size, you have a lot of economies of scale when it comes to LEED, and in the district will end up saving, or in the future will end up saving the district a lot of operation and maintenance costs if we do consider those LEED concepts. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
In addition to being good stewards of the environment, as far as LEED certification, you also open up educational opportunities for your program, to show students, what sustainability is about, what conserving resources is all about. We've seen that in other schools where that was part of our LEED program, where they've incorporated or developed LEED or sustainable courses or instructions into their program, and that was part of the LEED certification. So, it can contribute to your educational program as well.
Just one more question, Megan. The 2 ponds on the site are dry. Do we still have to maintain them?
They are by definition still wetlands. I have asked that, and I've even asked the engineer why. I don't understand, if there's not water, how is it wet? But the wetlands definition is something to do with the habitat, kind of the rim of that pond and the things that live there. And our engineer, we've asked this multiple times, and they said ponds can be dry, seen up to 10 years, and it's still considered a wetlands.
Really? Okay. Any questions for Greg or Megan? Okay. Well then, the next item is the bond issue resolution, which is an action item.
And this doesn't have to be read in its entirety. It can be, the motion can be stated as presented, and but the clerk will have to do a tally of ayes and nays.
So has everybody had a chance to think about this? $73 million, cool school, new middle school renovations. Any questions? Anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? We will vote with our hands up so Danielle can count. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. So the motion passes, so you guys have a lot of paperwork in 3 days.
Yeah.
All righty.
Greg,
Next.
is there anything else that you need from the board this evening?
Now, there's 3 signature pages that will be part of that application, and we can leave those for after the meeting or whenever it's convenient. I guess we can have a copy of those signature pages emailed to us or faxed by the end of the week. That's all we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Randy, I guess this is yours, budget and school finance for the budget hearing.
As always, in July, I like to give the board a kind of a preview of how the budget's shaping and how we're putting it together. And the best way to learn a school budget in my mind and how I teach it is using the Form 150. And because that kind of gives you the gestalt view of everything that we consider and how everything is calculated. And I thought I'd just run you through it real quick and then show you what the publication page would look like that goes in the paper in August. Basically, we're going to use a rather flat enrollment growth again. It's beefed up a little bit. We had about 2538 or so last year. We put that at 2550. The reason is if we overinflate it, it's kind of shifted with the state taking money in the middle of the year, that kind of thing. It used to be I'd underinflate it so that I could republish and then I wouldn't affect the local property taxes as much. But now we're trying to stay flat, give the state a good idea of what the revenues, and hopefully they'll not practice the taking money away from us in the middle of the year like they did the last couple of years. So we set that at 2550, and if you get down here to, you can kind of look at some of these, but you have low enrollment and high enrollment correlation factors that are used in the formula. Ours is based on a high enrollment. And then you can look at vocational ed. You calculate those, that adds 25. Now the thing to remember is what you hear or read in the newspaper is a per pupil rate. And a lot of people have taken, well, they only have 2,500 students and they multiply it times that rate. It isn't near as much as what our budget is. And that's because of these weightings. And the weightings turn out to more FTE. So like if you look at vocational education, and we take the hours and the classes that those students attend, and we come up with 25 FTE, meaning the hours equate to 25 students at full time. Okay, so a lot of people think, well, you only have 25 students in your vocational ed program. That's not true. It's the hours that we have to calculate to get an FTE. Weighted at risk, 239. That number is getting more and more healthy. Non-proficient student weighting is 10. That's not real healthy in Lansing. It's healthy in one sense, but in terms of numbers, it's less than many of our neighbors. So you come down here, the special ed one is one of the big ones. You add that up. And what happens then is we come down to line 17 for an operating budget. That 2550 with all the weightings turns into 3576.3 times the state, what the state pays per pupil, and that gives you a general fund. The one thing to remember is LOB, if you look down here at 22, is calculated on what the court said they should be paying us. So they take those same numbers, and like our LOB is 30%, they take the same numbers, multiply it times 4433, which the court a few years, and now it's under debate again, said that the state should be paying. And so that over here, if you look over here, 15 million, that's what our general fund should be, according to the courts, but instead it's this number up here, 13. So then, that's basically most of the budget in a nutshell. Another form to consider is, we call this a publication form, or it's Code 99. If you look at any school budgets divided into two sections, various codes up to about 100, and then forms. And this is what gets published, and over here what everybody's interested in. I'm trying to stay to the mic and look through my bifocals here a little bit. By law, all of residents' general fund is set at 20 mil. If you go back 15 years, we saw 33, 35. The finance formula changed to 93, and through about a 4 or 5 year process, that became 20 mil. It's been that way for about 10, 12 years or so now. The next line is supplemental general fund, and that's at 30% of the general fund. That produces a mill rate of 18.3. Capital outlay, some school districts go up higher. We've always maintained at 4. There was a couple of years we lowered that to 3 to kind of balance with the city during hard economic times, to kind of lessen some of the mill tax on our taxpayers. But 4 mil seems to work well in Lansing. We've been able to build reserves by property, do various things, and so I don't see any reason to raise that. We'll go down to the second page. The other one is where you, in the second page of the publication page, you'll see bond and interest, and that's where you saw Greg's number a little earlier for last year. This one's about the same, about 9.8 mil on bond and interest. And then you take the total, and easy comparison to last year. We were 51.7. This one here is showing 53. So about 1.3 mil increase. Any questions yet? So a pretty clean budget. Some things could change. I will tell you on the bond and interest that during the hard times of last year and the year before, we played with the cash basis a little bit and made that less. A little bit risky, but just to kind of lessen the burden. And this year we're getting that back up to, what did we say, 600,000. A little reserve there, so because you have to make the bond and interest payments no matter what. So that's pretty much a preview of what it looks like. Be happy to answer any questions. Remember, in the great world of school finance is that we operate beginning July 1 last week without a budget, and we continue to operate until August when the board adopts a budget, which will have a budget hearing and so forth in August, and still not knowing how many students and how much money we'll generate until September 20th. So that's the world of school finance.
Any questions for Randy? So you need a motion to accept your preliminary budget and set the budget hearing on August 13th.
No, don't need a motion, just a precursor preview, and it gives the board some time to think for a month or so and shoot emails, questions, give me a call. I was wondering about this, what are you doing this, and those kind of things. So I like to do it this way because it gives the board plenty of time before August to think about that mill rate, to think about some of the other things that we might be budgeting for.
Good. Any questions on the maintenance report, 5.1?
Mowing has slowed down considerably.
What about technology report? Questions or comments? Administrative reports? They were a little bit light this month.
A little bit light. Dan and Mary Alice. Theirs are attached.
Do you have any comments, Mary Alice?
I'm happy to report that we are close to being fully staffed in SPED for special education, teachers and paras, well ahead of last year.
Very good.
With new exciting gifted programming, I understand.
Yes, we do. We have hired a young man who wants to be at the high school level. He's coming to us from Blue Valley. Very excited to be here.
Very good. Dan, any comments on your report?
Just gearing up for the start of school.
All right. So legal services, this is an action item. Pete Coran has been our attorney for a long, long time. Any questions about that? So do we need a motion here, Randy?
Yes.
Okay. So I move that we approve Pete Coran to be our school district attorney at the stated rate, a slight increase from last year.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Disposal services? Go ahead, Randy.
Recommendation is to stay with Deffenbaugh. We did bid this year, and as it turned out, able to recommend a low bid with Deffenbaugh to maintain. Here's some things that are kind of broke down for you. Bidding can be a little tricky, and how vendors charge for certain things. Sometimes it gets tricky in that you have apples and oranges that you're trying to compare. This one was pretty clean, and the bottom line came out to Deffenbaugh being the lowest. And the good news about Deffenbaugh is that our recycling program is maintained and fully.
Good. Anybody like to make a motion for that?
I move that we accept the bid from Deffenbaugh as presented.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Pest control?
I'm probably running out of memory. There we go. This is a sheet that kind of depicts the pest control, and my recommendation is to maintain, stay the course. He wanted to go up 5%, and I said, to make it 3%, and I'll recommend that we stay with you. And he did that. And so
Are these numbers right in our agenda then, Randy?
yeah.
Anybody like to make a motion or ask questions?
Make a motion that we accept the advanced pest control as presented.
Second? Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Board retreat.
Last month, everybody mentioned, as well as I, that I needed to talk to the boss. And so we gave you a month to do that, and thought we better make it official and have a motion to schedule your board retreat. for
And you're
August.
staying married?
Staying
with the
married.
boss? Good.
Yeah. Big 30.
So everybody okay with August 25th? Very good. Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I move that we have our board retreat on August 25th.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? Just a side note, board retreats are like special board meetings, and we'll set an agenda. Special board meetings, the agenda must be set, and it cannot be changed during the meeting. And I throw that in because some of us are new to the process, and just so that you know, I've had incidents where all of a sudden something new topic came up during the retreat, and business they wanted to try to conduct business. We can't do that. So if there's something you want on a board retreat, please try to think of it ahead of time.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. So substitute handbook.
Each year, we like to have the board approve these, and Dan works very hard to get that done, get the substitutes informed of how we conduct business and how we operate. What's new this year is the substitute calling. We had a person that did that from home in years past, and we've moved that to the district office level. The good news is we do all the accounting of that and so forth here anyway, and that's an easy transition for us.
I move that we approve the 2012-2013 substitute handbook as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. I move that we enter executive session to discuss non-elected personnel, matters affecting students, confidential financial data, discuss negotiations, etc., for a period of 20 minutes. To start at 8:15. So we'll be back in here at 8:35.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So 8.2, resignations and retirements. I move that we accept all resignations and retirements as presented.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Claudia, your turn. 8.3, appointments. We're just going to round robin here, so be ready.
I'm
Just
not
count the
paying
numbers.
attention, so you just go
Okay.
ahead.
I move.
I'm move we accept the appointment of Greg Tomlinson for a position of third grade teacher.
Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good. Gary, you're 8.4.
He didn't keep the letter.
Okay. I move that we appoint all, or accept all supplemental position appointments as recommended.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Good. So I move that we rescind the resignation of Betty Bell as Title I teacher at Lansing Elementary School.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. 8.5, Bob.
Move that we accept all the out-of-district students as presented.
Second. Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Beth, 8.6.
I knew you were going to do that. I move that we ratify the 2012-2013 negotiated agreement as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? By the way, thank you, Deb. I heard the negotiations went very well.
Yes, they
I
did.
don't know what happened with the frog, but it sounds interesting.
You don't want to know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Very good.
Move that we accept the 2012-2013 classified and administrative salaries as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Debbie?
I move that we accept the revised 2012-2013 school calendar as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Any other discussion items anybody wants to bring up? Very good. I move that we adjourn to meet next month.
Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Very good.
Sorry, I didn't know the game plan.
Okay.